everybody. I'm Amy.
And I'm Audrea.
And this is The Right Crowd, so grab a cup of coffee.
Or a cup of flat Coke Zero.
Maybe a little something on the rocks, and let's get started. Audrea, would you like to introduce our guest?
I would. I am so excited. Although I'm always excited to talk to you too, Amy, but I'm really excited because we have Daniel Joshua Rubin here today with us, and he is the author of 27 Essential Principles of Story, the book that we have been reviewing and using as our first right read this year. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself, Josh?
My name is Daniel Joshua Rubin. I started out my career as a playwright. I went to Yale. I did have a school. It's kind of on hold right now. I closed it during COVID. So I actually moved everything to a website called storyprinciples.com where I have a full online course. But I was a playwright for about 6 years after I went to grad school. Then I went to LA for 11 years. I wrote for a couple of TV shows. I did a little bit of development, and a lot of times I just was looking for work, like so many writers. And then I felt LA wasn't a great fit for me. And we moved back home to Evanston, Illinois, just north of Chicago. And I'm back here now and back to writing.
Awesome.
That's my little journey.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
Sure.
Well, we've gushed about your book over, I don't know, has it been 100 episodes, Amy, that we've done?
Thank you.
You know, I lost count of how long we took because we took time off, but we stuck with it.
Yeah.
But I also want to mention that before we started this book, we interviewed Nicole because her book club at Stop Writing Alone did the same book, and she really hyped it up for us about because of that interview with her, determined how we were going to tackle this, which was completely different than how we thought we were going to tackle it. But we probably took a year. We actually condensed it down to how many episodes we actually did. I want to say we probably did a year's worth of once a month. We tackled 2 or 3 chapters every month.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
We had so much fun with the book.
I'm so glad. Thank you so much.
It's
such a great feeling. Yeah. So excited to get into it.
Well, one of the first things, as much as I love the book, one of the things I want to fight about, not really fight, but disagree about.
Yeah.
She got a bone to pick.
We can be spirited.
Okay. So in your introduction, you say that this book is not for people who want to score a quick buck by writing about a cop who partners with a schnauzer. It's for writers who have something important to say, who take stories seriously, and etc. I believe that writers who are writing about a cop who's partnered with a schnauzer can also take stories seriously, and their story can be improved greatly by reading and working through your book.
Thank you. I don't have a passionate disagreement with that. It's funny. I feel like the principles push people into the deepest parts of themselves. And that's the hardest thing, in my opinion, about writing. But one thing I did learn, and I honestly, I need to reread my book, but I consider Toni Morrison a major patron saint of the book. I almost feel like I didn't write the book. I did so much research and I read so many interviews with so many writers. And she said something that really stuck with me a lot. And I'm very open to the idea that I look at writing schools kind of like I do. I'm very inspired by the way martial arts are taught.
Mm-hmm.
I just think there's a gradual nature and they give you time to develop your skills. And some dojos teach karate and some teach kung fu and some teach jujitsu. And they have hilarious fights. Like my tiger style is better than your snake style. But the reason I brought up Toni Morrison is she was very passionate about that you couldn't write about anything but what's going on deep inside you. So she would have her students at Princeton start with anything they could come up with. I'm a Jewish little bald guy from Brooklyn, but she would say if I was writing about a waitress in West Texas, I'd probably end up writing about all the things that are on my mind anyway.
Yeah.
I have to say, in my own experience as a teacher, I taught a couple of years ago at Loyola in Chicago, and I felt like I got a lot of, a lot of depth and pathos out of my kids by putting some real effort into getting them in touch with what's going on inside them. I do think there's a little bit of a crisis, actually a major one, where I think what I found in every great writer that I studied, and this is, I'm trying to be less hyperbolic and less extreme in all my yakking, but that's another Brooklyn thing. Everything we say is the most, you're either with us or against us, and we're right, there's only black and white. But I definitely feel that when writers are tapped into something deep and important to them, it's more fun to write, it's more interesting to write, and they seem to write better to me. But kids today are being trained to focus on what everybody else thinks. You look at Toni Morrison, August Wilson, Eminem, Alison Bechdel, Junot Diaz, every writer I studied, they know who they are. They know what they believe, and they know what they think is good. And they're not running every minute for everyone else to give them likes and shares and follows and reposts. I'm not going to argue with someone of Toni Morrison's stature if that's the way she teaches. So if you want to write about a cop and a schnauzer, I say more power to you. And I do think the book probably would make it a better story about that schnauzer. And maybe we want to go deep into who that schnauzer is.
I think so. I think
Yeah.
there's lots of books on the market with talking cats these days. And I think
Yeah.
all of the writing could be improved by reading your book and working
Thank you.
through the exercises.
I hope this is the worst disagreement that I ever have in the rest of my days, because it's pretty good.
Well, I'm glad I got that off my chest.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So one of the things I wanted to ask about was, how did you choose the names of each principle, and why did you choose not to use common terms like inciting incident and catalyst and things like that?
I'm so glad you're asking this because I put so much time and effort in that. I'm a really fanatic fan of what I would call radical simplicity. Just
Well, I love
and
that.
and it's funny. Elon Musk is such a controversial guy, but one of the things he talks a lot about is moving from first principles. When he built Tesla, he was saying you don't reason by analogy, meaning if you're going to build a car, you don't think every car has a steering wheel. You think every car needs to be controlled. So maybe it could be a joystick, maybe it could be artified, it could be other things. So I thought, how could I make this principle as simple as humanly imaginable? And I thought, how could it be a principle that no one could possibly argue with? And then I thought, I've become such a fanatic fan of understanding propaganda and influence and how visceral humans are in how we process information. So for example, you often have an idea and then you rationalize the idea. Like you might see someone and just not like their face. And then what someone would say, why don't you like that person? And you'd say, well, I didn't like that thing he said to me. I didn't like it. But really the truth is you just don't like something about them.
Yeah.
So we think super viscerally. And my point about that is like we make decisions to navigate reality. We have to make decisions at insane speeds. Like the computing power, which is something everyone's talking about so much with AI and stuff. You need to just cross a street. There's tons of things going on. There's cars coming, there's noises, there's sounds, there's people. And so anyway, so long story short, I wanted you to see the name of the principle and get it like instantly. Then we drill it like martial arts. So
Wow.
the reason I didn't like inciting incident is it sounds inherently kind of biased. Like inciting incidents, like the thing that kicks off the story, has to be some big dramatic, and well, it has to be dramatic, but it has to be it makes you think of like a car accident or a murder and it's like, no, the first thing that kicks off a story could be the subtlest, smallest thing. A guy could be working with his coworker and realize, oh my God, I'm in love with this person, and have just so I thought that term was just too, I don't know, inherently biasing.
Okay. Well, I like that. And so for those of you who are just joining us for the first time, Amy and I are beginning writers. So we spend a lot of time trying to improve our craft by studying craft books. So one of the things I really liked about your book, The 27 Essential Principles of Story, was those titles. It was those principles. They were easy to understand. The first one is drop the hammer. I'm like, well, yeah, that you understand that when you drop the hammer, something's happened. Something is pushing someone forward. And another one, ask dramatic questions. I'd never heard it put that way. And that, helps you to move your writing forward with the questions that you're asking of the characters and some of the things. One of the other ones that I really like, I liked all of them, confirm the decision, escalate risk, and things like that. But it really helped me think about my stories, my work in progress in a different way. And even through all of the other books we've read, which they're all great, they all come at it from a different way. But when I was exploring my work with your book, I was able to go deeper and to pull things out of my
Awesome.
writing with that.
That's so great to hear. Thank you. It's funny. A lot of this was written from, they say a lot of good writing, nonfiction especially, is like being very specific about who you're talking to. And this is a little bit maybe dramatic, but I felt like I come from a culture. Again, I'm from like a Brooklyn, New York Jewish Italian neighborhood, and people are just in your face every minute. Like you wear something they don't like, you're gonna hear about it. And there's a lot of criticism and a lot of judgment. And so much of what I was trying to do was talk as directly and simply to someone who's got that kind of feeling of needing to create and make it as simple as possible to just get started, just feel like you're in the game. And I felt overwhelmed a lot. I remember when I was starting out, and I felt navigating between being totally lost and being over, what's the word? You got to do this on page 10 and this on page 20, and you got to finish your inciting incident by, and I was like, I just felt like I don't even want to write anymore. It's like, okay, I got to fill in the blanks, So I felt like I really wanted the principles to work in a way that gave you a ton of freedom and yet kept you on track. And that's what that's what I'm most proud of about the way this works. I know later we're going to talk about the workbook, and I didn't actually make one, and I still wonder if I should, but I felt like I think
Amy's nodding her head. We're
sure.
like, where's the
That's
workbook?
Good. Maybe I still will. I do have a download. Maybe we can share it in notes later of a graphic I made of a train track. It's part of my course, my online course. I always think in terms of train tracks, like either a story's on track or it's off. And that's the closest thing I probably have to an outline. Honestly, the simplest thing, I think this is really good, is the simplest way to think of a story. And then you could add limitless complexity, but is ask a dramatic question, answer it. In the first part, you just set up the question. And in the end of the movie or story, will Hamlet kill the king? Yes. I hope if anyone hasn't read Hamlet,
spoiler.
You just ruined it.
Sorry, I should have given a spoiler alert. But that really is the basic arc of it. And then with that is the greatest, most psychologically complex character ever was in the middle of it. But anyways, that in some ways would be, in all honesty, my outline. You set up the question in Act 1, the hero chases the object of desire in Act 2, and you solve it all you resolve it all in Act 3. But I got to rein myself in. It's funny, in all honesty, I did a podcast about narrative investing the other day. And at one point I rambled so much. I said, I think the horse left the barn. And the host of the show said he's doing his second lap around the farm. So I gotta,
got it.
I'll let you control that.
Okay. That is one of the things I liked about the book, is that it was simple to follow, simple to understand the concepts of the principles, and then simpler still, and thank you for this, to apply them to your own work. And that is driven by especially how you structured the book. I mean, just chef's kiss to the structure of writing craft book. I love it. And for those of you who don't have the book, go get the book, go buy the book. But each chapter,
thank you so much,
does the quick take, and then about the principle, and then how it works. And then you explore how a master did it. And I love that. I mean, just loved each one of those. Sometimes I didn't like the particular story because it was a little too deep or emotional for me, but I loved how you applied it and translated it. And then you end it with how you do it. And then there's some other things in there with the quiz and the pop quiz and things like that.
Sure.
But so what made you structure it that way? Was that from teaching?
And again, it's so much from, I'm not remotely claiming I'm some tough guy, but martial arts really changed my life. I grew up with a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress, and we live in stressed out times, to say the least, and I remember I had a lot of trouble after 9/11 happened, and I remember thinking I need to get more centered. So I started studying karate at the school in Los Angeles. And first thing I loved so much was they put a white belt on you. So you literally get to go, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm the rookie in
Yeah.
this place. I'm terrible. And they teach you like, just block like this,
Yeah.
throw like this. And they just slowly, and then it's like, so you do this, like slow motion. Then you do it faster. Then they try to punch you in the face and you got to block them. You know what I mean? And so my point is, I wanted to give people an experience similar to that, meaning it's not enough. I feel like I could block right now if someone just walked in. I haven't been doing it in like 15 years. I haven't been in a dojo, but I know like muscle memory. So I wanted that for writers. You know what I mean? Meaning these are the things that I don't think anyone could possibly argue with. And I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself, but the bottom line is it's set up like, okay, first you see the name of the principle, like earn transformations. Okay, we get the gist of it. Now let's do a little quick take. Here's what we're getting after. Now let me itemize how that works in a story. I mean, how it works to implement it. But now let me show you how the greatest writers did it.
Yeah.
So I could show you this is exactly what Hamlet, this is what Hamlet did. And so that was like the big bomb. So I felt like each one gradually builds on the other one. But the whole idea is retention, that you could read a chapter and it would be really hard to forget
Yeah.
principle once you read it. So that was the thought process on that. And I do have to give a quick shout out. The editor of the book, her name is Margot Herrera. She was at Workman Publishing, and I cannot begin to express how much she influenced. The original book was 150 like micro principles, and it was Workman Publishing when they bought the book was like those go way too fast.
Yeah.
And then they said we want less, fewer. And I was amazed how I was like, what? I liked the original one. And they were like, no, you gotta work harder, give us fewer, but deepen them. And then I realized, oh, wow, I could combine like 10 of those into one principle. So sorry, that was a little history of the book.
No, that's cool. You should have seen how big
Sure.
Amy's eyes got when you said 150 micro principles.
Yeah.
We would
It,
have been 90 years old when we finished
it
the
was
book.
and it's funny, it was such a big project. At one point, I remember crying and telling them, can it be the 17 essential principles of story, please?
Oh, wow.
But so anyway, sorry. Yeah. So that was how the structure of a chapter came about.
That was really cool. And I misspoke. I said pop quiz, and it is mini final exam. And
Oh, yeah.
really liked that, having that at the end, because it's an opportunity, which you don't get with a lot of writing craft books, to see if you actually, do you get it? You've seen, the principle, you've seen how a master applies it, and he's showed you how to put it in, but do you get it? And if you go
Yeah.
through the exam.
I'm so glad you're saying it's really important. I cannot express to you how hard we worked on those. And I still get emails every now and then going, this one's stupid. This final exam, I don't know. The B is not the right answer. And I'm like,
That's hilarious.
But what's really funny is originally the mini final exams were meant to be kind of funny. And I made the answer really obvious. And Margot was like, no, you got to really make some of the other answers. I think every one of them has one ridiculous answer. But you're right. Like, if you couldn't fake it, like, if you don't understand the principle, you're not going to get them, because sometimes I deliberately made two look like they really could be
Yeah.
the right answer, but you had to really understand the nuances of the principle. So, yeah.
Well, and then you follow it up even with, again, this, I love this part too, the continuing ed. So yet another piece of media that you added so that you could go watch that or read that or whatever it was, depending on the media, to again see that principle in action. And that was excellent too. I mean, a lot of these
Right.
books, they give you one thing, a lot I've read some books where it's all Star Wars, which is it's a great story. It's a great, the first, or it's not the first, please do not write me, do not.
Yeah.
Drop in my comments. I know the first Star Wars was
Well,
not the first, but
and that one is famously based on the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell and the mythic, blah, blah, blah. I really am trying not to be a trash talker, but for me, those books really, I just couldn't get into them in terms of it's just too formulaic. Like now you meet the mentor, the old guy, and the old guy tells you it's you, and you go, no, it couldn't be me. I couldn't be the guy who saves the village. And it just was too, even though I'm sure there's tremendous truth and interesting archetypal things in there, but that was a reason I kind of wrote my book was, because there was a huge part of me that thought, who needs another book on like storytelling? There's like thousands of them. And
we know.
I really felt, and I believe me, I've read so many of them, but I really felt like they were so restrictive. And sorry. So yeah, but another thing I want to make sure I remember to say is another big part of this, and this is something that I've probably been too critical of myself and my method, is I'm so sensitive to wanting writers to write from the gut and let it rip and be primal and be bold and courageous and unafraid. And it worries me if anyone is too rigid about structure, meaning, so like, let's say you study martial arts and you know how to how to fight the right way. And let's just say, God forbid, you're in a terrible situation and someone's coming at you. You can't say to yourself, I need to remember to breathe. I need to turn my body, plant my feet.
Yes.
Like do all that stuff. So it's so important. And this is such a big thing, flow states, the whole point of this book is, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead of anything, but it's to create flow states, meaning you flow from thing to thing. You read the book, like in my ideal world, you read the book, you infuse the principles, but then you forget them. And then when it's time to write, it's time to write. It's time to unleash that thing my mother did to me, that thing I hate my boss. I'm writing my murder mystery and I'm in the murder. You don't want to be thinking about like, am I properly, executing the drop of the hammer? Like, so that's something I'm really fanatic about is, and the reason I bring up flow states, and sorry, we're gonna have to corral me a bit, but is the thing I learned about flow states is a famous book by this guy with the hardest name to like, he's got a million, it's pronounced like Mihaly, Csikszentmihalyi. It's a very famous book called Flow. And one of the things he says about getting into a flow state is you have to have the perfect amount of challenge. So if it's too hard to do the thing you're trying to do, you'll just quit and get frustrated. And if it's too easy, you'll get bored. So my hope with these principles is in executing them, you're always in, like if you're trying to structure a transformation in a scene, like let's just say it's the moment in a marriage where a person realizes they don't want to be in the marriage. That doesn't come easily. It's one day you might look at your spouse and go, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. But that's a hard moment to moment process to go, no, I really think I want to live with somebody else. And so anyways, so flowing through the technique is the most important thing. I'm so glad I said this because if I hung up, if we disconnected and I didn't say this, that's probably the most important part of this. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I hate that when you don't say the one thing. So I'm glad you said
like
it.
George Costanza does that a lot. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right. Speaking of some of the things that we like, and I want to get to my questions, but I'm going to give Amy a chance to speak.
Yeah.
So Amy, why don't we jump to one of your first questions and then we'll circle back around to mine because I'm going to gush a lot over one of my questions here.
I'm okay with just sitting here and listening. Okay, so one of my questions would be, now that the book is done, do you continue to collect examples? Like, do you still think of examples for each principle?
Yeah, I love you asking me that. I really wanted to read the great holy books and major philosophy books and some of the classics. And when I was reading sacred texts and famous great literature, I was constantly saying, well, Okay, we know why these books are the most famous books ever written and people live by them. I mean, these are some incredible stories. I mean, you want to look at stories of Moses, Muhammad, Jesus. These stories, they're executing these principles. I realized I have like 1,000 books. Like, when am I going to read all these books? So I started thinking, I got to whittle my list down to just the greatest books ever written. So I had seen this book about a Vietnam War veteran called The Things They Carried. And he has the most moving chapter about the moment he realized he needed to go to Vietnam, even though he didn't believe in the war. And I thought, this is the greatest example of two principles: write characters to the top of their intelligence and earn the transformation. And so, long-winded way of saying, oh man, oh hell yes. When I read anything or watch, I can't, my wife, we pretty much watch TV in separate rooms now because she's like, will you shut up? I'm like, oh, they did a good job there. I'll go, oh, come on. We know what's coming now. Look what they're setting up right there. And she's like, get out of here. I'm just trying to watch Thor smash his hammer into someone's head. So yeah, but no, I do. I look at them all the time and I'm always super questioning myself. And I'm so sensitive to the fear that I don't ever want to be accused of dumbing down the mystery and the wonder and the greatness of writing by naming things, because I'm a big fan of like wonder and curiosity. And but I keep seeing them. In fact, unless you're getting into like Proust or like super experimental styles of writing, storytelling, I've been so blown away by how versatile it is and how many different kinds of stories, and how stories are still something we're fanatic about. And it just doesn't seem to be able to be exhausted. Like, if any time in human history you think people would go, I got it, I've seen all the stories I need to see, would be now, but it doesn't,
No.
So
Mhm.
totally, I definitely see them all the time, everything I do.
So which one do you think is the most important
Okay,
principle
I
from
was
all of them?
excited. This might be the question I was most excited about, I think. I'm not
Jackpot.
kidding. There's this thing called the Pareto principle, which means that, for anyone who's not familiar with it, it's that 20% of the inputs make up 80% of the outputs. So, if you have 10 theater directors, two directors will direct 80% of the plays on Broadway. So it made me look at my book and think, God, I wonder what is the Pareto for this book? Like, what would be if there's 27 principles? I'm the worst at math, but about 5 or 6 of them would be the ones that do the heavy lifting. So I won't do 5 or 6. I could, but like, without a doubt, ask dramatic questions. But like, ask dramatic questions. It keeps a story on track. And so many times when I read rookie stories, you get about a third of the way through and you're like, what is this about? What are we doing? And I think I just have a bias. I just tend to like simpler stories myself. There's a reason we all love medical, legal, and police. It's because, will the doctor save the patient? Will the cop catch the killer?
Yeah.
In romance, will the boy get the girl? But it's like these genres, they have super simple, clear, dramatic questions. So that's definitely one. But I would say number two, and I learned this one, I'll name drop a little bit, but I was lucky enough to be mentored by a woman named Alexa Young, who's an incredible playwright and TV writer. Her resume is ridiculous. She was one of the main writers on Friends. She was on Sex and the City, West Wing, and she taught me, always write characters to the top of their intelligence. She said nothing will make a reader quit reading more than thinking the only genre where it's fun for characters to be stupid is like teen slasher movies. You want to see them be as stupid as they can be, because then it's fun to watch them get killed. But there's a really interesting psychological thing there. We don't want to see smart people get killed. But I do think that the reason that principle is so important is it if the story is set up properly, and if the stakes are high enough, the character has to, like, if you think of, has to operate at the top of their intelligence. So if you think about anything you ever cared about in life when you've been in a dating situation with someone you're crazy about, or a job you really wanted, or a crisis at work, or an illness with, God forbid, a child, you need to have your A game on. You can't be careless and stupid. And I think, like, you look at like Breaking Bad, was the whole show was based on that Walter was always coming up with the most ingenious ways to get out of the messes that he was making. And so that's a huge one. So I have central, ask dramatic questions, write characters at the top of their intelligence, earn transformations is so important. I think the worst that you want to guarantee someone is writing poorly is all their transformations happen easily. So I use this situation just because it's so easy, but let's just say you're in a bar and you have your eye on someone. The worst writer, you send over a drink, and next thing you know, they're going home together, and they're exchanging phone numbers. Like, what? Like, every single thing in life has to come hard for the hero. I remember in grad school, the guy teaching us about Jaws. There's a scene, and that's how old I am, but like Jaws was like always the big movie. But like, there's a scene where the Chief Brody realizes he's got to shut down the beach because the shark is eating people. And he literally has trouble finding a place to make a sign. He's going to the hardware store, and there's an old guy bothering him, and kids are misbehaving, and he can't find the brushes and the paints. So like so even the littlest transformation, like the beach does not have a sign, so the beach gets a sign. Even that, Spielberg's smart enough to make it work. And so earning the transformation with a character operating at the top of their intelligence, I'd say those are the big dogs. Of you get those right, you almost certainly have. I'm sure I'm forgetting other ones. They are a little bit like my kids. I mean, I'm sure I'm forgetting some that I love, but active and decisive. Sorry, one more. Make your character active and decisive. I mean, this is incredible, but that some people forget about this, but characters have to do things, and lots of them. There's always an exception. Every rule, your character could be slow, and comedy breaks every rule. But generally speaking, characters have to do stuff constantly. They're constantly trying to figure out, how am I going to solve this problem? Oh my God, this person just said this thing to me. I wasn't expecting this. So I'd say those do the heavy lifting, but I guarantee if I really, one of those principles is going to take human form when I get off this podcast and say, hey, really? Really? You didn't
Okay,
think?
well,
Yeah,
to see if maybe something else
sure.
jogs.
Yeah,
Those four that you just gave us, were they
yeah.
the four that you thought were the most important when you first wrote the book, or has it changed?
Yeah, I think those were always high. Especially right characters to the top of their intelligence. Oh, another one I love is there's a vulgarity in there. That's funny. When I get a decent amount of people who send me an email going, I loved your book, but did you have to use the F word? And I'm like, my editor thought it was true to my character, but I kind of regret it now. I think it probably does more harm than good, but I won't use the word. But the two, Matt Stone and Trey Parker, who created South Park, they have a principle that says if you connect with and instead of therefore, you're effed. And so connecting with therefore, meaning this happens, therefore this happens, is incredibly valuable. Like, because the thing that will kill every rookie writer is rambling and taking too long to get to the point. It really is just like being at a party and someone's talking to you and you're like, what is the point of this? So I have the example in the book, like Joe punches Doug. Therefore, Doug punches Joe, or therefore Doug bursts into tears, or therefore, but if you use and, Joe punches Doug, you could say anything. Joe punches Doug and a monkey fell out of a tree in Mongolia. So that therefore really keeps you on track. If you ask the dramatic question, will the boy get the girl? And he does this, therefore she does this, therefore he does this. You can literally feel the momentum building. So that one's a huge one. But I'll probably say that about anyone if we picked him out of a hat. Charlie Munger, who's a famous billionaire, who's Warren Buffett's partner, he calls a great investment theory. When all the things happen, I promise this is relevant. When all the things happen in a great stock pick, he calls it the Lollapalooza effect. meaning it goes exponential. Like the CEO is great and the product is great and the competition is weak and the pricing is great. And all of a sudden you get 100x on your investment. I feel these principles, this one makes that one better. If you earn the transformation and you're connecting with therefore, and the dramatic question is clear, you get like an exponential effect where you're like, damn, that is a really good scene. So they are all meant to work together and to make your story better.
You mentioned one of my favorites. I mean, they're all great, like you said. They all work together, but the ranked your character
Yeah.
to the top of their intelligence, one of my favorites, because it helped me to make sure I wasn't letting my main character off easy, and the antagonist had to be just as
That's great.
smart. Top of
Absolutely.
it.
And that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up because what I love about that principle is it's very clear, but it's really hard. And that's what I'm talking about with the flow states, which is if you really say to yourself, okay, I'm in this situation as this character, what's the smartest thing I could possibly do? So many writers that I studied, it's amazing how many of them are walkers. And I've since become a big walker. I've learned that if you ask your brain a question and then you go on a long walk, it is amazing how many times you might just be walking for I love walking because I'm a lazy person in some ways. And I joke, I hate exertion, but I could walk forever. And so many times I'll be on a walk. And if I have a problem, all of a sudden there it is. It'll go, hey, what if you do this thing? But that's what I think about. But writing a character at the top of intelligence is really hard. Okay, like what is the smartest thing? And then there might be four things you might do. So yeah, I do love that one. Okay, I think that's established itself as the grand poobah.
Okay. Okay. Well, I have to go back a little bit just because
Sure.
one of my other favorites, among all of my other favorites, is the Exceed Expectations. And you used 30 Rock, one of my favorite shows in there. And
Oh, great.
yeah, I loved how you illustrated Exceed Expectations in there and how, that was a fabulous show. It was popular for years, won lots of Emmys, and it was great. And when you watch great shows, especially if you're a writer, you're trying to figure out what makes this show great. Why am I glued to why do I have to watch this show if they're not just manipulating your emotions, like slasher films, but why is it
Yeah.
great? And you broke down why that particular episode, it was Jack Tor, was so great. And I think I gushed a little bit in that episode when Amy and I went over it. But and then in the show this happened, and then in the show this happened, and then he explains, and then this happened. And she's like, I didn't watch the show. I'm going to take your word for it. I take Daniel Rubin's word for it.
It,
Let's move on. But
yeah, it's funny. I did learn a lot when I was, and it also brings up other things where exceed expectations, you're right, is really important because when you sit down, one of the unpleasant things to think about is nowadays the amount of people writing it's a lot. And meaning that if you really want to be a pro writer and you really want to get in a big agent and get your script noticed by major Broadway producers, publishers, it really has to be great. Like it has to be just as good as you could make it. And I think it's easy to forget about that because I think what happens to writers is you work so hard to get your script as good as it is. And what I learned from, I'll use my friend Alexa Young again. I think she told me she's writing a play. I'm not kidding. She's on her 100th draft. She's not mad at me for oversharing there. But that's the work. And this is one of the most elite writers I've ever known. And it's 100 drafts. But in Exceed Expectations, I find it fun to say, okay, this is a comedy. Let's just take a deep breath. Is this the funniest? Like people expect to get a laugh.
mhm.
That's why we're doing this. Because I think in the chaos, at least for me, the chaos of writing sometimes, and with my brain, the way it goes, I start out with a comedy and then halfway through, I'm like, why did I just kill that guy? This was supposed to be funny. And those moments are so hard. Or you go, wait, is that the right? Should this have been a horror? Or did I just completely but that's why it's fun. I'm sorry to get on one of my tangents, but that's why I'm fanatic about, and maybe this is relevant to Exceed Expectations. I think it is, but like one of my favorite movies, I'm not really a big horror person, but I have so much respect for it, is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'll tell you why. Again, it's horrific, and I get that I have no problem with anyone who would never want to see it. But as from a writing standpoint, that guy, Toby Hooper, tells you it's called the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So now he has three things he better deliver: Texas, a chainsaw, and a massacre. But my point is, he told you what he was going to do. If you watch that movie, you signed up for the
Yeah.
movie. He didn't. And I feel like there's a lady or a gentleman quality to being a great writer, which is I hate pranks. Like I went to a play not long ago that was billed as a farce and it turned into a blood-soaked massacre. And I'm like, no, that's bull crap. And the writer was like, well, I needed to drive home the point that it was like a satire of capitalism. And like, okay, fine, but you cheated. To me, that's pranking. You pulled a prank. You told me I was going to it's just bad manners. If I invite you to
Yeah.
yeah. So for me, the reason I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre is very gentlemanly in a weird way is he told you what he was going to do and he still scared the pants off you if you like there are things in that movie that I saw it I think I was 10 and I think I remember we went with a bunch of my little league baseball team and I think I remember almost needing the coach we begged him to go. So
Oh my
back
God.
then, nobody cared about decency. But anyway, I remember us bullying him into taking us. And I remember him saying to him, like, I don't think I can take it. I want to leave. But anyway, so yeah, exceed expectations is definitely important. But the thing about TV writing, sorry to go on another ramble here, but the TV writing, I don't think a lot of people realize just how mathematical and precise it has to be. You need to have every character who's on the cast get their bit. You need to do a joke that fits their character perfectly. It needs to be the exact tone of that show. And that one, yeah, that Jack Tor episode, definitely that person nailed every last part of that. So,
Yeah, I agreed. So that leads me to the question with how another one of the reasons I love the book was all the different media. It wasn't just like we said, Star Wars or the Steinbeck book or something like that. It was all different media. You've got Eminem in there. You've got, as you mentioned, South Park and Morrison. So how did you go about choosing the media and
oh
the
my
genres?
God, I am an organizational maniac. I can't tell you how many giant pieces of graph paper I had. And the first thing was I had to make sure the story most flawlessly executed the greatest example I know of that principle, could be no room for argument. If you read the chapter and went, I'm not sure that really flawlessly executes the principle. Then a huge part of why Workman Publishing wanted the book was the diversity of storytellers. So I really did, in the best sense of the word, want the most diverse book on story ever written. Because I was trying to get to the ultra root of storytelling, it had to work in every media, no matter what form you tell a story in. So I had millions and millions of lists. And there were times when I'd fall madly in love with a story, and I'd be like, oh man, I already have 4 novels. I got to find a spoken word story. And
Oh.
then I'd have to watch like a million moths to find the one that, like, wow, that moth story did an amazing job, but I already have that principle. So yeah, it was a lot of work till all the pieces fell
Holy
into
cow.
place.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
So I want to ask you,
sure.
you said earlier that they're all simple principles and yada, 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 except
Yeah,
26 and 27.
sure. Okay.
I, I, over my head, could not even, I read them multiple times.
Oh man,
I
that's not
understand how the examples worked with what you said, but I
okay.
still don't get the principles.
Okay, now this is
So
attack your
dumb it
theme.
down for me.
Sure, sure. This is attack your theme and transcend thought, right?
Yes.
Okay. So attack your theme, really, it's basically this simple. The example from attack your theme is Dostoevsky was a devout Christian. He really had a moment where he was literally about to be executed as a revolutionary. And while he was waiting to be on a firing squad, he looks up and he sees a cross on a church in the streaming sunlight. And he has a moment where he realizes, soon I will be with God. And they ended up revoking, thank goodness, his execution. They just put him in a penal colony for 4 years, but he becomes a very devout Christian. And Brothers Karamazov, which many people consider one of the greatest novels ever written, was written specifically with a goal in mind to show that Christ is real, that religion is true, and that faith is the right way to live. But in that book, he wrote a scene, it's the scene I talk about in the book, where he had a character talk about why he's not religious. And he wrote that scene so great. The guy lays out his argument in meticulous detail why he doesn't believe in God and why he never will. And he did it so well that his friends who were religious were like, what did you do? You just ruined the whole book. And what he said is, no, when you can show someone you're arguing with that you hear their argument, you respect their argument, you can hear why they think you're wrong, and still tell them, but here's why I believe what I believe and I think you're wrong, you come off as a much superior or much more mature thinker. So that's the idea of that you have your idea that your story is about, but I think it strengthens the story when you can show you understand why someone might see it differently. The point is that I think it strengthens your theme. And just for anyone who hasn't read the book yet, a theme in the way I'm using the word is you have a subject of your story, which could be marriage, but your theme is your take on that subject. So it might be marriage is crap. Worst thing you could ever do is get married. It's a prison. And then maybe another idea might be marriage makes life worth living, to share your journey with another human. So whichever one you pick, you strengthen it by showing the other side. So that's that one.
Okay.
The next one, I'm not going to lie. Oh my God, was I out of gas when I wrote that one? I think it's okay. I read this crazy stat that said, I'm not kidding, some crazy percentage of people buy a nonfiction book and never read it. It's scary how many people. I can show you my shelves. There's more on that. Yeah.
We're not going to talk about it.
Yeah. So the fact that you even read that you read the book and the 27th chapter, to be honest, I think I could have done that thing where I could have put a thing saying, if you're reading this, send me an email and I'll send you $100. I'd be surprised if I got too many of those. But the last one is called Transcend Thought. And what I wanted to do in that one is classic dramatic structure, which is what I consider this book's, like martial art, like karate. This is a style of writing, and it's not the only game in town. But classic dramatic structure for me is based on an idea that you can rearrange reality to make a meaningful experience. We walk through life all the time. It's so crazy. It's so chaotic. Sometimes it just feels like we have no idea what's going on. And I think we find it incredibly empowering and insightful to restructure reality in a way that has meaning. That's the whole, I think, part of the game. So something happens, you drop the hammer or they have the inciting incident, and the hero pursues something with like sheer logic. This happens, then this happens. So Transcend Thought was about doing things that aren't necessarily logical. Like I think in Beloved, she gets ultra poetic because her passion for that book, as I understood it, was to capture the experience of actually being a slave from a slave's point of view. And she, I think, had to enter a kind of dream state. It gets super poetic toward the end. And so that's what I was getting at there. I find like the great stories probably execute all of these principles. Oh, sorry, we have a visitor. Thank you for coming, buddy.
Special
Wait,
guest.
what's the baby's name?
This is my pal Maisie. We got her because she has a mohawk.
Yes, she does.
Punk rock, and she does not take to being told she can't come on my desk. So we'll probably be seeing her again.
That's okay. Maisie is welcome to join the
Oh,
party.
thanks a lot. You could be really honest. Like, did we,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
I was even able to write down a way that made me understand it.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yes. So on that vein, are there any principles that you would add, or out of the 150 micro principles that it started out with, are there any that you wish you had included that got cut?
And I'm really glad you asked. I might have thought this one up afterward, and maybe it's in here, buried in here some way. But one of the things I definitely notice so often in great writing, I would add a principle. I should just write the chapter and put it somewhere, but it's fight. Maybe I did actually. It's called fight at close range, but a really important point is fight at close range. So, meaning that it's about a family. It takes place in one room in an office. Really great story. I was working with a young writer, and she's a really talented writer. And I got her, she had a story where a young woman had three main women in her life, like the woman she nannied for, her mother, and her therapist. And she had all these complicated ideas. And we got that thing into one room, and it became a much more intense thing between this nanny and this woman. And that play got her into NYU grad school.
Wow.
Landed her an agent. That was fight it kind of in close quarters. But I also mean a story about, like in Breaking Bad, sorry, all my examples of these kind of stories. In Breaking Bad, the cop is the bad guy, who's also the good guy, his brother-in-law. You know, the story kicks off with he's watching his brother-in-law do a drug bust. And then he's like, whoa, I can make drugs. I'm a scientist. And so it's like, it's not just a cop against a killer. It's a man, and he's jealous of his brother-in-law because his son looks up to his brother-in-law. So like when your story is a husband against a wife, here's one of the biggest things. One of the best ways to fail at writing and storytelling is if any minute your reader thinks the hero can just leave. Yeah. They can just leave. It's over. The story is over because they would just leave. Like the pain that you have to go through as a hero in a story, you know, like in Lord of the Rings, another story I always use because most people know it, but if he doesn't get this ring in Mordor, the world will be destroyed. He cannot just say, hey, you know what? I'll deal with that ring later. It's like, no, so the best way to do that, that's an adventure story, but is in a story is you can't just walk away like from your mother. You know what I mean? If there's some big problem with your mother. And so fight at close range. Like I think 90% of the time, I swear I can look at a writer and look at the outline of their story, even if they just pitch me and say, hey, it's about this. I can probably tell almost always if we're off to a good start. And so, yeah, fight at close range is a big one. Fight at close range, meaning close range to your heart, your soul. You're fighting with someone who's very important to you. But also, I literally mean if it's in one room, it's probably going to be a lot easier to write than if you're traveling the world in your story. Yeah. Make it hard to change locations or add a new character. Because when you write characters to the top of their intelligence, and you said something really smart before, that all this applies to your antagonist too. And so like when you put four people in a scene, you have to really like become A, B, C, and D. And now you got to go through, okay, what is this person thinking? What were they doing before this thing happened? What are their biases? And then you have to go, how does A think about B? A think about C? Because they might love B, but hate C. And I think a lot of rookie writers, they just don't understand how hard this is to do well. And it's this level of thought that is your competitive advantage. So that's the thing about top of the intelligence. You got to come hard with your A game on that dispiriting note. But I find it hopefully inspiring because in all honesty, when I had one night in Loyola where I still feel a little bad about this. I was a little testy that night. And I said, you guys want the truth, or do you want to just spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, get a degree, then go to LA and then find out the truth? And they're like, no, Professor Rubin, give us the truth. Give us the truth. And I'm like, when you find out what the odds really look like and what you're really up against, I think it should be inspiring because it makes you think, okay, I want to be the best I could possibly be. And maybe you will push yourself to heights. Because one of my favorite things to tell young writers is no one knows how great you could be, or all writers. I shouldn't put young on it. No one knows. You know what I mean? Like if you start executing these principles, there are going to be times where you go, what just happened? You know what I mean? Like something just happened. Like my favorite story is Arthur Miller, who was the fanatic fan of studying dramatic structure. And one night he built a studio in his backyard and he went out back to write. And it was like his dream place to write, like a little shed. He was a craftsman who worked with wood and he built his dream place to write. And this is something I'm thinking a ton about. I'm actually remodeling my writing room here. And I do think location matters a lot to writers. When you study a lot of biographies of writers, they are hardcore. They have crazy rituals, and this guy needed to put cork all over his room so no one could get in. He couldn't hear anything. And Patricia Highsmith, the noir writer, she used to have to surround herself with donuts, cigarettes, cups of sugar, and I'm not kidding, snails. She had pet snails, and she wanted all her beloved snails. That's why maybe she's writing noir. But anyway, so your room is incredibly important to you. But anyway, when you get all these principles working together, I think about Frankenstein, the doctor, and he's going up to get the lightning to bring the monster to life. And Arthur Miller wrote for like 12 straight hours through the night. And he finished Act 1 of Death of a Salesman. And he literally, he had like that Lollapalooza effect where I think he nailed everything. That was the biggest issue on his mind. It was inspired by his uncle, who was a salesman and who was like failing in life. It was his ultimate metaphor of capitalism. And that was so much better than anything he ever could have dreamed that he was going to write. So I don't know what sparked me on that thing, but we went with it and it was important. But getting all these principles to work together is hugely important.
Well, speaking of all of these principles and getting them to work together, Professor Rubin, you have taken your principles and you've got a course that's available. Yes. And I happened on the course and I started in it and I thought, well, I've read the book. Let me just quickly go through this course and I'm going to get a certificate or something. But the course is just as deep and intense as reading the book. So you wrote in the introduction that you wanted to give readers of the book MFA level instruction on writing craft. And the course is just like that. So what made you put the course together? And then what made you make it free?
Sure. Thank you. These are great questions. The original title of my book was Story Master. And the whole idea was a friend of mine wrote a book called The Personal MBA, very famous book, bestseller. And he was an executive and they told him, you got to get an MBA. And he said, I don't want to go back to school. I'm already successful. You guys like me. Yeah. And they said, no, you got to have an MBA to advance at this big company. So he said, well, I'll just give myself an MBA. It's just reading. So he made a personal MBA. And he thought, I don't want to spend years of my life and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I thought, especially nowadays when so many people struggle to make a car payment, like who's going to spend $100,000 to $300,000 to get a degree? So the first thing was I wanted to give you everything you could possibly need to build a writing life. But when they wanted me to deepen every chapter, I had to cut 2 parts. So there was 3 parts. It was know who you are, learn your craft, execute. That was my 3 things, the pillars that my whole system works on. So number 1, know yourself. Number 2, master your craft. And number 3, now you got to get it done. So I had to cut. I mean, it would have been like a 700-page book. And it's already a 400-page book, which is pretty big. But so I missed those parts. So the first course, it's like a 7-in-1 master course. It is, I've changed the name a bunch. I'm forgetting the name of my own course, but I think it's Know Yourself is the first section. And I'm so fanatic about this, especially with younger writers. It really worries me how much they're being trained to, number 1, express themselves carelessly. Like I sent a tweet, I did an Instagram, and that's fine. But writing for me, there's a lot of thinking in writing. And I start the course with a self-elicitation guide where it just asks you to go through questions like, who are you? Where do you come from? Because one of my favorite examples is I once had a friend who got into trouble in LA. His career wasn't working. And he said, I'm going to write young adult fiction for girls. And I thought, why? And he's like, because that's what's selling. And I'm like, dude, you are so far away from who you are. And it didn't work. And I knew it wouldn't work. If you think about how sad that is, that's years of his life dead, guaranteed, in my opinion. So I thought if you go through this questionnaire and I teach people, trust your gut. It's funny, I started studying some form of Buddhism that's very much about trusting your body knows things. And I've been kind of amazed by how much this is true. But what I was saying is when you feel your gut, like you watch a movie and something moves you deeply that might not move the other person watching the movie with you, or some incident happens in life. And I started thinking like all the great writers that I know, you look at their best story and then you look at who they are, and the alignment is always, literally always, like nobody reads like The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde and thinks Junot Diaz wrote that. A guy who was an immigrant from the Dominican Republic and lived in New Jersey wrote a book about Dominican, immigrants in New Jersey. That's his issue. And something very personal came out. He wrote an article in the New Yorker about it. And you're like, that incident, he was abused. And that's what his book is about, like 100%. It took him 16 years to face that in public. For me, you have to know who you are and what you love. And I just think that starts your story further up the field, even though Toni Morrison may be cursing me from beyond. But anyway, so then the other section is how do you build a writing life? So the course has a huge section, and I haven't even started marketing the course yet. This is the beginning of this because it took me so much work to finish it. Also, I didn't know about wearing makeup when you're on camera. Oh my Lord. Oh my God, it looks like Uncle Fester. Someone dried out. I mean, it is some blanched watermelon head looking guy. I didn't know about that. I told my wife, I got to reshoot the whole thing. If you see the course, we put a lot of time and effort and money into that course. But anyway, really important point. They never teach how to build a writing life, which is the most insane thing. So I have all my students, and you could download all this free, download a sheet that has all the hours of all the days of the week, and then take a highlighter. I love all the stuff about writing, and highlight when are you definitely free. And I don't care, again, stick with Toni Morrison. She somehow was a single mother with 2 kids and would get up at 4 a.m, write for 2 hours, then make breakfast, then go to the city, work as an editor, and come home. And then she could write in the car. But she had her process, but she knew she was getting up at early in the morning and write that. And that was her, like, she missed those 2 hours, like she might not get to write that day. So I teach people, and then it's like, when are you best at? Because I have friends who can only write in the middle of the night. So knowing when is your hardcore time to write, and you have to guard that with your life. If you know you're an afternoon writer, I don't want to hear that your friends are coming over. This is an unforgiving business. Nobody cares why you didn't get it done or why it's not as good as it could be. No, and no one asks how long did it take you. They just want to see the thing. So helping writers build a writing life. And I have a lot of things, and I'm giving you more than you bargained for on this answer, but I feel like it's the most underrated part of writing. So know who you are, know your craft, but you have to build a life, because so many writers, Arthur Miller took like 15 full-length plays till he made it. Quentin Tarantino wrote like 25 scripts. Every writer I ever meet, they start getting irritated with me. And it's a big thing I have to navigate when I do consulting, where I realize, oh man, this person thinks this first script they've ever written is really definitely going to sell. And then I have to, which is fine.
I mean, it could.
It does happen, 100%. It does happen. And if you read my book, no,
but it's not likely.
But you do have to plan for a life. And I think that takes the pressure off. Just relax and build. So I give you personas that you could adopt. Like Bob Dylan was going to take everything he could get from anyone. He could sleep on their couch, eat their food, use them. And he was kind of open about it. He's like, I'm going to the top. and nothing is stopping me. Madonna, when I read some of her biography, I'm doing what I got to do to make it. She had a great line. She said something like, if I wasn't so talented with my ambition, I'd be a monstrosity. And then other people, they work part-time jobs and they say, okay, I'm not going to be as wealthy as I wish I was, but I'll have enough money and I'll write 4 days a week and I'll do my part-time job. Mm-hmm. And then other people, they're like money and security, number one. And a lot of them have spouses and kids. They try to write on early morning and weekends, when that's that. But I really believe you have to know that. So that's what the execution section is. And then I want to say the reason the course is free is because I'm such a great guy and I'm so passionate about making storytelling free. But the truth is, I don't feel I own all this stuff. Some of it, in all honesty, of the 27 principles, confirm the decision is the most original. At least I've never heard someone else use that term. And I always tried to give credit. I say the South Park guys gave me this principle. So I felt like I wanted to share this, but I do have a friend who's a business person and he's telling me I have to charge for it because he thinks when people get things for free, they don't value them. So, but I guess I felt like I was levels of out of gas by the time I wrote the book, went through the editing, went through the hell of actually living up to my editor's standards, and then making the course. There's just nothing left. In all honesty, the answer is I'm still figuring that out. But I did it for free, in all honesty, because I'm running out of gas and marketing is a whole other thing. And if no one could yell at me, I gave it to you for free. I don't want to deal with people calling me up going, I want a refund for my $100. I thought it wasn't different enough than the book. But anyway, that's what's going on with that one. I work with a guy now who grew up in gangs on the south side of Chicago. He's one of my favorite people in the world. And so I think about him and the thousands of people like him who want to write, and any money would be hard at times. So I felt like, here it is, let's share this, but I could do a better job of upping the perceived value, you know? So anyway, the answer is because I'm a wonderful person.
You are.
I love the people who weren't handed everything. So anyway, I'm down with the people.
The little guy.
Yeah. And I am a little guy. Yeah.
Well, us little gals appreciate it. I know I appreciate it.
Thank you both, by the way. I cannot express to you how happy I was. I don't do a ton of like Googling myself to see stuff, but I did one day, like, let's see if anybody's looking at my book. And when I found you two and channel, that was the best. That was one of my favorite moments. And I'm so appreciate what you're doing. I feel the love you have for the book. I hope so much it's making your writing amazing and your audience is writing better. And I'm so happy I got to chat with you.
Thank you very much. Sure. Well, before you go, is there anything you do want to promote or do want to put in links?
Any upcoming projects or appearances or anything like that?
Yeah, no, it's just that Story Principles website. In all honesty, I mean, the book is not making me rich. It's great. I'm thrilled with it. You know,
well, we bought copies.
Thank you so much.
I bought 3 copies, actually.
Oh, that's so awesome. And so the next project is I'm filming my own stuff. I'm recording my own things and putting it out. I mean, we have such a gift nowadays to end on a really positive note.
Yeah.
The tools available to the average writer. You could write your book and publish it. You could design it. You could find an audience. You can make a YouTube channel. You could make a little theater. And I think one of the amazing gifts that we've all gotten, that's like no one saw this coming, but in an age of artificial intelligence, the human, I think, is going up so much in value. And I look at AI, I don't see a soul. At least, thank God, not yet. You see it and you go, it's missing something. Mm-hmm. I think it's such a great thing for rookie writers to think small at first. Think about your community. Think about writing a play that you could produce for your friends and family. Think about writing a book that your friends will read, and build slowly. You don't go from A to Z. You earn the transformation. You go from A to B. And if you think of yourself as the hero of your own story, which I think is legit, this book, I hope, has benefits way beyond writing. So maybe that's a good place to finally zip it up. But thank you so much for having me, and hopefully we'll talk again.
That will be great.
Okay.
All right. All right. Thank you.
You too. All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. That was amazing. That was Daniel Joshua Rubin, the author of 27 Essential Principles of Story. We got to meet him and talk to him, and you got to hear his take on all the principles and how they can apply not just to your writing, but to your life. And we are going to put links in the show notes.
You have to copy paste.
You'll have to copy paste.
We don't have enough of you guys yet.
Yes.
To put links.
Yeah. As we get more subscribers and all that stuff, YouTube will give us permission to actually put links, but we'll put it all down there and we'll put it in other places so you guys can get to it. But for now, thanks everybody.
Oh, don't forget to like and subscribe.
Oh, yes, please do that and show up for the next one. We'll come back and talk about our next book. Okay, bye.